keeping it casual. By now, we know that zooming prematurely and introducing ideas too early creates biases and delivers bad data. In Steve Blank's original book of customers development, Four Steps to the Epiphany, he solved this by recommending three separate meetings. The first about the customers and their problems, the second about your solutions, and the third to sell a product. By splitting the meeting, you avoid the premature zoom and pathos problem. In practice, however, I have found it both difficult and inefficient to set up all three meetings. The time cost of 1 hour meeting is more than 4 hours once you factor in the calendar dance, commu- commuting and reviewing. It's a big time commitment to ask from the customer before you are in the position to show them anything in holding written. Holding written. In the early days, asking for initial problem conversation was simply enforceable for me. I wasn't credible enough, so nobody wanted to take a meeting just to talk to me about their day. Steve recommends starting with friendly first contact. Defin- Definitely do that if you have them. When you ask questions that pass, the mom stays. The fact that they are friends won't bias your data. In my case, in my case though, I was entering a new industry with a high walls, brand advertisement, and had no friendly first contact. As my credibility built after a couple of years in the industry, I found myself able to get meetings without any real reason. The three meeting structure was finally viable, but once I started doing it, it felt like a bad use of my time. The most precious resources in a startup is its founder's time. You have to put yourself where it matters most. And I wasn't finding early customers meeting to be that place. I wished I could get the learning without all the overhead. If the solution isn't free meeting series, then what is it? You may have noticed a trend throughout the conversation examples we have seen so far, keeping it casual. Let's say I'm trying to build tools to help public speakers get more speaking gigs, and I bump into one at a conference. It's not going to try to set up a meeting. Instead, I'm just going to immediately transition into the most important question. Hey, I'm curious, how did you end up getting this gig? As a side bonus, we are also now having an interesting conversation. Now I'm far more likely to be remembered and get a meeting later. When you strip all the formality from the process, you end up with no meeting, no interviews, and a much easier time all around. The conversation becomes so fast and lightweight that you can go to the industry meetups and leave with dozens customer conversation under a belt, each of which provided as much value as a lengthy formal meeting. The structure of separate problem solution sales conversation is critical for avoiding biases, but it's important to realize that the first one doesn't actually need to be a meeting. It works better at a chat. So, what's the rule of thumb? Learning about customers and their problems work better as a quick and casual chat than a long formal meeting. So, the meeting anti pattern. The meeting anti pattern is a tendency to regulate every opportunity for customer conversation into a calendar block. Beyond being a bad use of your time and setting expectations that are not good, are going to show them a product. Over reliance on formal meeting lead us to overlook perfectly good chances for serendipitous learning. Serendipitous learning. Imagine that you are in the crowded cafe, tapping away at your keyboard. When your dream boy or girl sits down next to you, they are wearing a charming hat and give you a friendly nod before cracking open a dog-eared old novel which just totally completed the mood. You slam down a quick espresso to psych, psych yourself up and fumble through some sort of awkward monologue about how they seem like a really nice person. And this is kind of weird because you don't even know each other, but maybe they want to go get a coffee sometimes. Like a different coffee at a different place. It's obvious that this is a silly situation. After all, the purpose of the date is to talk to each other and see if you get along. Therefore, for all intent and purpose, you were already on one, and then you mess up and by trying to over formalize it when you could have just chatted a bit and skipped the whole first date completely. We're going to pull exactly the same trick in our early customer conversation. We're going to strip the pomp and circumstances and reduce it to form is from a meeting to a chat. If you do it, if you do it right, they won't even know we were talking about our data, our idea. I was once considering a product idea to make office managers more efficient. I played with the possibilities on Friday, figured out the big question over the weekend, and then went to an industry event on Monday. A handful of office managers were there, and without any of them realizing we had a meeting, I had learned that the big problem was relying about debt collection rather than efficiency. I got there by just being interested and chatting with them over a beer. X seems really annoying. How do you deal with it? If it acts as bad as it seems, you guys did a great job with it. Where did you get that from? Being too normal is a crunch. We used to deal with the admittedly ambiguous and awkward situation. Instead of leaving wiggle room for the unexpected, everything becomes a process. But there's a big time cost to informality and it tends to crumble much of the learning we hope to achieve. Symptoms of formality. So, first off, thank for agreeing to the interview. I just had a few questions for you and then I will let you get back to your day. On a scale of 1 to 5, how much would you say? On a scale of 1 to 5, how much would you say you? Learning from customers doesn't mean you'd have to be wearing a suit and sipping oatmeal's bedroom coffee. Asking the right question is fast and on, touches on topic that people find quite interesting. You can talk anywhere and save yourself the formal meeting until you have something concrete to show. At their best, their conversations are the pleasure for both parties. You're probably the best person in the long time to be truly interested in the party and the noise of the day. So, the rule of thumb is if it feels like they are doing you a favor by talking to you, it's probably too formal. So, how long are meetings? Early conversations are very fast. The chat grows longer as you move from the early boardrooms. Is this a real problem? Towards more specific product and industry issue, which other software do not have to integrate with to close to sale. For example, it only takes 5 minutes maximum to learn whether a problem exists and is impotent. A bit further along, you will find yourself asking questions with an answer with long stories explaining their workflow, how they spend their time, and what else they have tried. You can usually get get what you came for intent, but people love telling stories about themselves, so you can keep this conversation going indefinitely if it's valuable for you and fun for them. At the extreme end, learning the details of an industry takes an hour or more. Thankfully, those are easier conversations to facilitate since the other person, usually some sort of industry experts, can go into a monologue once you point them in the right direction. The duration of formal B2B meetings, the kind of schedule, is determined more by the arbitrary calendar block than by what you actually want to learn. Of course, you have liable to burn 50 minutes just to get up a copy and saying hello before the meeting actually starts. But sometimes the tea is fancy, so that's nice. Once you have a product and meetings takes more than a sales oriented feel, you will you will want to start carving out clear blocks of 30 minutes. You might lose 5 minutes due to the miscellaneous tardiness. Spend 5 minutes saying hello, 5 minutes asking questions to understand their goals, problems, budgets, 10 minutes to describe the product, and 5 minutes figuring out next step and advancement. That's your half hour. The potential speed of the early conversation is one of the big reasons I like keeping it casual and skipping the meetings. Scheduling and going to the meeting is too much overhead for a chat which only needs to be 10 minutes long. Even explaining that you are starting a company and would love to ask a couple questions can take 5 or 10 minutes. You will make progress a lot faster if you are able to leave your idea out it for as long as possible. Putting it together. Even within a more formal meeting, you still might want to keep it casual if you are hoping to get non-biased feedbacks. I lined up a couple meetings to ask about the industry. I showed up to the first meeting and while making small talk, said something like, I was thinking you guys must get a ton of leads, right? The guy laughed and said that, yeah, it was crazy. I asked how it is a world that deal with all that. He sort of shrugged and pointed at a cluster of about a dozen sticky notes on the wall. Each held a name and phone number. Our analysts killed most of them before they were reached us, and then we trashed a bunch more. We only end up with a few that are serious contenders. Then we just call every couple weeks to see how it's going. I said it didn't sound so bad, and he agreed that it works pretty well. And then he asked me what I wanted to talk about. But I didn't need anything else because I had learned what I came for. They don't have the problem. That's successful learning. We disproved our idea before the guy even realized we were talking about. I It took 5 minutes of avoided biases and didn't feed us any bad data in the form of compliments, fluff, or ideas. Instead, we got concrete facts about our customers, which directly answers our most important question. Of course, it took 2 hours commute to get those 5 minutes. It can be perfect every time. Sometimes, as happens above, we prove ourselves wrong. Other times, everything we hear just makes us even more excited. In that case, we can stand atop all that we have learned and take the visionary leap of coming up with a specific offering to making our customers leaves better, and then we ask them to commit it. Rule of thumb: give as little information as possible about the idea while still nudging the discussion in a useful direction. So that's it for today, guys. I'll be meeting you in the next session. Bye. Mom test.